Damn, y'all. This is not a great update day. I have started and stopped this video at least a dozen times. I was in a good place yesterday after posting the video. Felt really good to share some more of my truth. And it felt good to get some more positive feedback. Even though this isn't about the feedback, I recognize that I'm needing some support or I wouldn't be sharing these things at all. So thanks for the support, it really is helpful. And then the wheels fell off my pretty little red wagon. I had a lot of activation points, or what we typically call triggers, like I discussed a few days ago. I can't get into all of them because I do have to protect other people's confidentiality and their agency to tell their own stories. But I will give you a quick rundown of my afternoon going into evening. 1. A friend of mine is being hunted in the conservative press in ways that simply ruin careers, all because this extraordinarily competent professional does their job well. I have a very small glimpse of what is going to happen because I went through a scaled down version several years ago when I was working a custody case and my testimony was leaked and became a Breitbart headline. It was an awful time for me, and this situation immediately dredged up those feelings. If you haven't read The Body Keeps Score, it's a great overview of how our bodies really do hold on to traumas, and anything that feels like a prior trauma produces this autonomic response in our bodies. It's just awful. 2. Something I had planned for the afternoon fell through for reasons that are perfectly acceptable, but it still felt bad. And it led to a difficult discussion where I jumped into supportive mode, only to later have to admit in my zeal to be supportive, I wasn't being honest about what I needed. 3. Thought about cooking dinner, but decided I really wasn't in the mood to do that much work, and instead decided to go out to eat, which I've already identified as being an eating addiction trigger for me. To a Mexican restaurant. Another trigger. Where I devoured chips and guac, and then ordered my favorite burrito tacos. So I ate way too much, and in typical binge eating fashion, I did it very quickly so nobody could see my shame. I was in and out in maybe 20 minutes. And by the time I drove the 3 or so miles home, I was fighting off tears and feelings of self-hatred and shame and failure and being a fraud. 4. Later that night, I had another hard conversation, a follow-up from earlier in the day. And it didn't go so great for either one of us. And within 20 minutes, I was staring in the fridge, trying to figure out how to feed my feelings. 5. Throughout the day, I was feeling fairly lonely and disconnected. A lot of activation points, a lot of triggers. Triggers can be anywhere and everywhere, and they can come out of nowhere, and they can completely derail your day if you're not careful. And I wasn't careful. So now, today, I'm feeling like an abject failure. I know that's not true. I'm 6 damn days into this very intensive recovery process. It's way too soon to gauge success or failure. But tell that to the irrational part of my brain that is full of these perfectionistic ideals to offset my imposter syndrome. Tell that to the depressive and anxious feelings swirling around in my head that led to the eating in the first place, and were then magnified by the reality of what I'd done. And having to share this here, that's why I started and stopped this video so many times. This doesn't feel good. But ultimately, I landed on telling the truth. Because recovery is not a linear process. There are peaks and valleys. There are ups and downs. There are great days and not so great days and outright fucking want to bang my head on the wall days. That's where I'm at. So where do I go from here? I'm going to start by giving myself some grace. Bad days are going to happen. It doesn't mean I'm failing. It means I'm human and I'm on a journey. I'm going to revisit my prior worksheets about my good qualities, about the things I've done in my life, about all the things where I can experience and maybe even express gratitude. I'm going to remind myself that I'm allowed to take up space and I'm allowed to express my needs within that space. I do not have to subjugate my needs to be a caretaker or support others. In fact, I can only be good in those ways when my own needs are met. It's like that thing on the airplane. You have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help the person next to you. I need to be doing more of that. And I'm going to be more appropriately assertive in my communication. When something doesn't feel good, I'm going to say so. I'm not going to be scared that it's going to devolve into a fight. Instead, I'm going to see it as a way to prevent something worse from happening later. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the next day or so. I can't really go any deeper today because I just don't have the emotional energy for it. I'll spend the rest of the day doing my activities and my self-care. I'll spend the rest of the day getting refocused on my goals and being kind to myself for being human and having typical human experiences and reactions. That's where I'm at today. I'll be back tomorrow.